So this is kind of last week's news, about a week old now, but Jerome Powell spoke at Jackson Hole last week, actually on the 25th, says that there's a long way to go and multiple more rate hikes could be coming, presumably of about 0.25%, 0.25. The next meetings are about 3 weeks off. So September the 20th is the next FOMC meeting, and then November the 1st are, I don't know if, I can't remember if it's the final two of the year, but those are the next two. Probability of a rate hike had been only 20% for this September the 20th meeting. You and I talked about this the other day, Ewok. I think it shot up maybe to about 50-50 or something after his speech at Jackson Hole. What do you think the Fed does the rest of the year? And maybe that's not as important as like the mid to long term view here, because again, we've talked about this before. I tend to think that Powell is kind of bluffing. He always kind of does this dad speech, don't stay out too late. You got to make sure we do this in the morning and everything. And it still gets pressured by other folks as well. And then maybe doesn't actually pull the trigger on, the rate hike. So I'm not sure how much I really believe him or what his tone was. But what do you think? I know kind of what we talked about the other day is just wanting all this to be over and moving on. But his tone certainly didn't sound like they're done hiking rates. So what do you think?
No, it didn't sound like they're done, but you bring up a good point. There's been a lot of bluffing and a lot of not doing what they say they're going to do as quickly. I think we all just want them to do it and get it over with, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that would be the ideal situation. Raise it to what you want, get it done, let it kick in, hopefully move on from it so we can get back to, even the rates that they're looking for so that they can start easing it back again. And, I think people are just tired of the whole song and dance from them, with the not knowing, what are they going to do? People, there are people that are concerned that they could be losing jobs. There are effects being felt by a lot of people, but it's just not to where they want it to be. And, like I said, I would rather just see them do it, get it over with. As far as the odds, I could probably see one more. There's 2 more meetings, I think, is what we said, left in the year. I could see one of them being at least a 25-point rate hike, and I don't think both of them will be, but I think one will for sure.
So there actually is a third and final one on December the 13th. So that will be the last one of 2023. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, people are losing interest. I really think it's one of those, it was kind of exciting to follow, not exciting, but, there was a lot of curiosity behind it. And now people are just like, I don't even care. It doesn't really, it hasn't affected the markets too badly, other than just kind of staying stagnant as far as I can see.
That's really it. That's what I was going to say, is you're starting to see a lot of remarks from people on Twitter, X, whatever, from all over the cryptoverse of, this becoming the longest bear market ever now at 400 and I forget how many days. Again, it's all how you define that. The time horizons are how you define what a bear market or a bull market is or whatever. But that may be it. Maybe that's just what it is the actual, we've talked before about time capitulation and how much that can affect people differently than just, there's price capitulation, obviously. Like, oh my God, my bags are down 90%. What do I do? But then there's also just like, can we get this shit? Like, what are we doing here? And then, right now, what are we seeing? And I'm not criticizing anybody that plays in either one of these pools. We talked about this at length last week, but you're seeing the pumpage of things in the Pulse Chain ecosystem like PDAI, or some of the other meme tokens that I'm admittedly not even that educated on, and that's not even different from, the larger crypto space. You look at something like Pepe months ago compared to the rest of the market. It's very easy for a wandering eye who's just sick of waiting on their blue chip assets to wait. Now we're fine with that, but for might be somebody's first go around or something like that, you get that shiny new toy syndrome and you make it what could be a colossal mistake,
Yeah, the shiny object syndrome during a bear market is pretty is pretty hard for a lot of people. Like you said, if you haven't been around before and this is your first one, you see these things kind of pumping and you're like, oh, maybe I should get some. And then you get some and then it drops. And, it's just that cycle. If you're not in there from the beginning on some of these things, it's usually not going to fare well for you. There are some things that are doing cool. Some of the community likes to talk about some of the other things, and so be it. I hate bringing it up because of the timing. You know what I mean? It's rare for us to find one of those like little gems at the very beginning,
Right.
without knowing a whole lot about it, because we don't like to talk too much about new things until they're somewhat proven, right? So it's hard to push some of those things, and yeah, for people in the first cycle, it's difficult, and they do get bored, and they don't understand. Back to the theory of stake your hex, make your DCAing every single day if that's what you're doing, and it's not costing you anything. So, that's why I try to stay with the foundation of the tokens, and sometimes throw a little bit here and there, but I don't like to talk about it. If you find something and it catches your fancy, I wouldn't make a huge move. Definitely don't sell something for that. Throw a couple bucks into it if you want, but it could end up biting you in the ass down the road when you sell something that ends up doing 1,000x, and that token that you got into, basically gets rug pulled or loses interest. Because when the green candles start on the major ecosystem, all these other little tokens are probably going to get left behind or not supported as well, because the action goes to where the excitement really goes.
It will be interesting to see, yeah, specifically. I mean, we will see this in the regular crypto market, but also, yeah, within the Pulse Chain ecosystem, what will happen with some of those tokens when eventually the core tokens like Pulse Chain, Pulse X, and the hexes really get their shit together and start pumping. So that'll definitely be interesting to see.